Hello, everyone. I'm Nelson Guevara. I teach Spanish at a private school, and this is my action research plan. I'm going to be presenting that to you, and I'll be sharing some of the thoughts, ideas, and everything that I'm working on right now as we get through the end of this semester. So let's get to it. The problem of practice that I've been working on is basically there's a general lack of student motivation at our school, at my school, and whenever I talk to other teachers, more experienced teachers too, people who have been there for 10 years or so, people who have a lot more experience than I do, they all agree, they all seem to notice the same patterns that I notice in my classrooms. And it's just a general lack of student motivation, which a lot of times can lead to disengagement, poor learning outcomes, students underperforming, students not caring enough, students not that don't really show deep thought or meaningful questions, or that they're truly engaging with what we are teaching them. And this is despite most of us, I believe, trying trying hard and making the effort to create engaging lessons. So we've noticed that pattern. Another pattern that I've noticed is that we've gone through very different stages at our school the past few years, with change in leadership and uh, almost closing the school, and then it recovered from which almost seemed as like a miracle, but we went through the pandemic too. And so there has been a change from complete apathy from the students, from some of the students, to caring, but only caring about the grades. And so there's some sort of uh, obsession with grades, and so students only care about these external rewards, about grades, about getting that 80. If I get that 80, I can make my mom happy, I can play sports, I can get that extra screen time that my parents promised me, or get that car that they promised me. So that those are the type of things that the students seem to be thinking about when they actually care. So sometimes you come into our classrooms, and it seems like they are engaged, but it's only superficial. It's a sort of a superficial engagement where they all seem to be trying, but only as far as they can get the grade. And we know this because whenever we talk to them and ask them questions, and ask them to think about what they're learning, they don't really give us any feedback. They don't give us an answer. And so yeah, they're just they get a great grasp understanding the content, or developing the skills that we want for them. Another trend very important that we've have noticed is the avoidance of challenge, which goes hand in hand with all the other concerns. And it's basically students avoid challenging tasks. They prefer easy repetitive work. um, and they even complain sometimes when we challenge them, when we give them work that requires them to think critically, or use their problem solving skills, and tell us that we're not doing our job because we're not making it easy for them. We're not giving them the answers. So um, and this is, again, this is something that other teachers have noticed too. And our hypothesis, and the hypothesis that I've been working on, is that we think that it's this avoidance of challenge. It kind of comes from a fixed mindset perspective. It's not just the process. It's not just the way we teach them, but there might be something going on with within the student culture, with their mindset, with their mentality, with how their beliefs about intelligence, their beliefs about their personal goals, how their personal goals connect with uh, our academic goals, um, and so on and so forth. So this brings me to my research question. So my research question is, how does teaching mindset theory, whether by direct instruction, which is the model that I uh, identify people seem to use the most on the literature that I read, or any other teaching models, how does mindset theory affect students' intrinsic or extrinsic motivation among high school students? The high school students part, I know it's a little bit broad. I could say something like juniors and seniors, which a lot of the literature focus on. But I do genuinely believe that, based on my conversations with the other teachers, it is a trend that we notice across all grades. And if I get to do this at my school, I would definitely like to see if we can apply it and put it into practice with all grades, all the kids. So the context of my school, I'll be talking about all these five things. Look at it for 2 seconds: geographic, community, instructional, culture, our schedule, the existing data, what we know about our students, and something about motivation and mindset too. So our school teaching context, I'll be brief. As I said, I'm a Spanish teacher. I teach all grades 9th through 12th. I'm the only Spanish teacher at my school. That's usually the case for a lot of our departments. It's a small school, a small community with, there's not a lot of need for uh, more teachers. Um, it's a private, independent Catholic high school uh, with limited ties to the diocese. We do rent the building, but we don't have any other connection to the diocese. So we do have a lot of freedom when it comes to how we create the curriculum, how we want to do things for the most part, unless we make them really upset. Um, but yeah, for the most part, it's fine. The school is financially sustainable. It's like I said, to it's been near closure during the pandemic, especially, but we survived and we are stable now, and we're just, yeah, we're going, keep going. The student population, this is data that I believe it's yeah, it's important. It's gonna say something about how my plan affects the whole community across different students with different backgrounds. So in the end, this will hopefully help too. 58% of our students are white, non-Hispanic. There's a growing population of Latino students, 22% of them as of uh, to date. 13% of these students are black, 5% are Asian. That's also been growing the last few years, and then 2% identify as multiracial. That they have more than one type of ethnicity. So the family and community that we have, it's a small school. We're very close to each other. Everyone is somehow engaged in some aspects. So the families, for instance, they're very involved in sports. You see them there all the time. They're always uh, supporting their kids, but there's very little engagement with us, the teachers, and their students as their kids as students. And they don't usually get in touch with us until their students are at risk of failing a class or something like that. So that's some of the challenges that we face. So my belief too is that when talking to some of these parents, the issue is that the work schedule doesn't help a lot. They can't always be there for their kids. But again, as a lot of the parents too, they do have time to go to sports, but don't make the time to check with their kids, teachers. So that it's still a challenge. The daily schedule. I had the opportunity. I was lucky enough to uh, be part of the committee that was working on the changing the school schedule. And so as of right now, we have a 7 period rotating schedule with a study hall, students coming to class for 5 times or 6 times a day, depending on their preference, and they have one study hall. Um, some of the things that we have found i- is so what we found recently on the surveys that we did when while changing the schedule is that um, a lot of the students don't really dedicate a lot of time to their academics. So most students do 10 minutes of homework or less daily. This is classwork, any assignments, any academic work um, after school or beyond the classwork. Um, and then the other thing that we also found is that there's only like a handful of students, uh, top performers again, 5%, 10%, maybe somewhere in between, that actually dedicate an hour or more to their academics. So most of our students are not really mm, uh, engaging in with learning. They're just it's this kind of confirm our hypothesis that they're just getting by the day and getting things done for a grade. Um, and then another interesting fact that we found out through those surveys was that their attention or the how focused they are during the day, it gets better before and after lunch. So those there's basically a peak time during the day where where they actually feel in control and that they can do things and learn. Motivation challenges. I've mentioned this. I'll be brief. Students are working for grades, not for learning. There's not enough the hard work, dedication, so on and so forth. And then we have also found that they are using a lot of them are using AI in ways that don't help their learning. That might be a different topic, but that's also something that we found. Um, and then, like I mentioned, even engaging lessons don't get them motivated sometimes. And we believe that the root of the issue might be their mindset. The literature review. So this part is, yeah, get ready. Social cognitive constructs. The I'll be talking about the theoretical part first, and then I'll get to very briefly through the main results of findings. Um, so Spintrich, I hope I'm pronouncing that right. I'm sorry if I don't pronounce any of these names correctly. His basic idea is that the student environment can influence the student motivation. So that's his base premise. And so teachers have a very important role as they can affect motivation through instructional design, feedback, emotional support, and by promoting a growth mindset too. So he argues that there's five social cognitive constructs. These five social cognitive constructs affect the students' beliefs, affect how they engage or are not engaged, and affect their motivation. And the teachers have a very prominent role in fostering this. So number one, this is very simple competency, uh, very straightforward. If the students believe that they're competent, that they have the abilities, they can perform. So that's idea number one. Idea number two, if students believe that they have some sort of control over what they're learning or the process of learning, they'll uh, perform better. They'll succeed in whatever they do. Um, Number three is goal orientation. Uh, so the he Pinterest basically says that there are two different types of uh, ways of orienting our goals in the classroom. One is to focus on mastery goals, the other is to focus on performance goals. Mastery goals is are all about the standard is to learn and to understand and to learn the skills that the students must know all of those things when we teach. And so the focus is the process of learning. The way we measure, the way you measure those, if you're using master goals, is it's self-referenced. Is you're gonna determine how the student is doing based on, you identify how they did on point A and then point B during the year, at the end of the quarter, semester, at the end of the year, and then you compare the student performance at different times of the year, and then you determine whether that student has learned, has improved. And so that's the self-reference part. um, Notice how I also add, and this is my sort of like maybe my interpretation of it. It's in relation to your class standard. So another way of interpreting this is to say, since it's self-reference and it's all about how the student is doing in relation to his or her own performance, then the class standard is no longer relevant, because it's all about how much the student is uh, learning, uh, he how much progress has he made throughout the year, right? So uh, that would be like, I think that's the most radical way of interpreting this, but I think that it's perfectly compatible with the using core standards. After all, if we want to be realistic, we all have standards. Schools have standards. Our schools ask us to make curriculum first, and then teach that curriculum with the standards to the students, and then sort of like figure things out along the way. Um, so yeah, that's that. There's that piece there right there, and this aligns better. This master goal orientation aligns better with a growth mindset. They believe that intelligence is developmental, and that students are capable of getting better, learning, developing their skills. The other piece is the performance oriented goals. And so this mainly focus on getting recognition and, as the student, protecting my own self-worth, and to focus on the outcome, mainly on to focus on the grade, to focus on looking smart, to focus on making sure that I make my parents happy, so on and so forth. So it's the way it's measured. If you're using, which I think we all have done this as teachers, as educators, the way you measure that, sometimes unintentionally, is by comparison. So you're comparing one student to other students. Usually, the top performers are compared to the the all the other students, and so this aligns better with a fixed mindset mentality. They believe that this is who you are. This is your capacity, your abilities, intellectual abilities are fixed. You cannot change them. People are going to be smarter than you all the time. You're going to be less smart than them all the time, so on and so forth. So yeah, those are the three uh, main points. And then to reiterate, when you, as the teacher, when you are using the master goal orientation, it's this is what it looks like. The assignments are broken down into parts. You might have your students submit a first draft of an essay for feedback, and then revise that draft, and then let them uh, review your feedback, and send you a final version of that, send you a final draft. So it's progressive. It's very adaptable. It allows students to actually engage in the process of learning, and so the grades is based on the growth. And so from point A to point B, you started this way, got some feedback, and then reattempted it, and then this is what how much you have progressed. So There's plenty of feedback, and the feedback focuses on the process. So instead of just writing correct and incorrect, or you get a B, you get an A, you get a 90, you get a 60, and so on and so forth. If uh, you give them a lot of feedback along the way, you make sure that the process emphasizes learning. You let them re-examine. You give them feedback that is useful and that focuses on uh, making them think about what they're doing, what they're learning. So you might ask questions like, "What was your thinking here?" or "How do you get to this step?" or "Let's review this together. Uh, what do you think could be improved on this part?" So on and so forth. So and then the another important part is that when a teacher is using mastery goals, all students are celebrated. You celebrate all students, and this is sort of like self-reference, like I previously mentioned. So if you're meeting with your students' parents, you might make a comment about how impressed you are about your students' performance, and say something about how this person improved uh, throughout the year from point A to point B. When this is going on in the classroom, according to Pinterich, um, the students start to believe that their mistakes are opportunities for growth. They believe that their intelligence increases through effort and feedback, and again, they're more likely to align with the growth mindset with adopting the mastery goals. Here's another overview of the performance goal, what it looks like. So when a teacher, for instance, is using performance goals, assignments are high stakes mostly. Everything is graded. Everything gets one opportunity. Students get one opportunity to get it right, and that's it. That's they get a grade. Um, and this is especially detrimental when the comments or the feedback is directed to comparing a student to other students' performance. Um, so and again, we do this probably unintentionally in class. Sometimes you might make a comment along the lines of, "You got a B, which is good, but you can still get an A, like Peter," or a comment like, "Only 5 students got an A on this exam." So that encourages, that fosters the a performance goal orientation, that which again it leads to a fixed mindset, which is not what we want. So public recognition is given only for the most part to the highest achievers. When this happens, the students are concerned about protecting their sense of competence. In other words, they're concerned about the appearance, about how they look, about not looking dumb, about looking smart, and they'll do whatever it takes, cheating, um, just I don't know, using ChatGPT, having their friends do their homework. They'll do it by whatever means, as long as they can preserve that appearance, because they're concerned with self-worth at that point, and so they're more likely to align with performance goals. This and so another interesting idea that I found in the literature review is, I explored the ideas of intrinsic and extrinsic motivation. I'm going to connect all of this in a second, so just bear with me, please. So I'll talk about all of this. So basically, my main finding is that I found really surprising and useful, that we all know about the distinction about intrinsic and extrinsic, but there's also three yeah there's also four types of extrinsic motivation. So four types of extrinsic motivation, and it shouldn't be thought about as a contrast. This is, the extrinsic is bad and the intrinsic is good. Extrinsic can actually be good according to literature, um, if it's oriented the right way. So in Ryan and Desi's framework, there's a motivation, there's an extrinsic motivation, and it's progressive. you get to intrinsic motivation, maybe, hopefully, not always. I personally believe it's not always possible, but you can get to a good level of engagement. You can get your students engaged. You can have them have a growth mindset, even if they're motivated extrinsically. What we want to avoid is a motivation, which is sort of what I was describing. This is what happened at my school. We starting from here, and we're somewhere in between here, for between extrinsic and intrinsic motivation. So, four types of extrinsic motivation. Number one is external regulation. The students are motivated purely by external demands or rewards. This is the classic case uh, that I discuss. Students do their homework only because their parents are controlling them. So they'll receive a reward, or whatever it is they're looking for, or um, they might receive a punishment if they don't. So it's all external. This is the at the lowest point on this chart. So you know, they don't generally value the activity that they're doing at this point. The number two is introjected regulation. Students perform an action to avoid internal punishment. This is all about the self. It doesn't concern the parents or anyone else, but it's sort of like guilt or anxiety or any negative emotion that they feel, or just to gain also internal rewards like pride or feeling excessively inflated about their self-esteem. So when this happens, a student might study hard for a test, but this is not because they enjoy the subject, but because they might feel guilty or bad about a grade, or how or want to prove themselves, or so it's all internal. um, so they want to prove themselves to themselves that they look smart, for instance, um, and they're internalizing this pressure, but still it kind of feels like obligated. It doesn't feel like they have a genuine interest in the activity that they're doing. Number three is identify regulation. This it starts to get a little bit better here. So students consciously value the behavior goal or regulation and accept it as personally important. So they identify the value of the activity at this point. The two previous one don't value the activity that they do, but this one does. The student values the activity, whatever it is that you're doing with them in the classroom. They might value it, but it's even if it's not inherently enjoyable. So a student might work diligently on a challenging math project because they understand the value of it, because they have chosen a career in engineering, for instance, and they know that this activity is valuable to them, even if it's not always fun. So that's what it looks like. Number four is integrated regulation, and this is where, as best as you can get sometimes, as best as I've gotten sometimes, I think, in my classroom, and this is what I think we could strive we can try to get to, if when we're trying to motivate students. So the regulation at this point has been fully assimilated and brought into congruence with one's other values and needs. So the students at this point have integrated on the values. The behavior feels fully chosen and endorsed by the self. Um, so for instance, a student might participate actively in a debate. Uh, for Let's say they join a debate club, uh, and this is not, again, this is still not because they inherently enjoy every aspect of debating, but because they deeply value uh, the intellectual, the engagement. They deeply value engaging with others intellectually, thinking critically, and developing their communication skills, so on and so forth. So they value those things, not don't necessarily enjoy every aspect of debating. They might not be attracted to disagreeing with others. They might feel offended sometimes by the comments that their peers make, but they value all of those other things, and so they have internalized at least those values. So that the activity feels more natural in that sense, and it feels more as an extension of who they are. And then lastly, you get to intrinsic motivation. This is very simple and straightforward. Uh, Students do the thing that they do for engagement, just the engagement for enjoyment, and they enjoy the things that they do in and of itself. There's nothing else. There's nothing external to it. It's just that they enjoy the activity. So, for instance, if a student is taking a music class, uh, they might practice with the guitar, over practice, even practice during lunch, practice before they play sports, practice at home, practice during summer break. So that's just they genuinely enjoy every aspect of the activity. They love, for instance, it might be simply because they love the sound the guitar makes. So things like that. So how does all of this make sense? Remember, I've been talking about two things. I've been talking about um, the social cognitive constructs and the idea that um uh, extrinsic and intrinsic motivation are sort of a continuum. They're progressive. You move your students from a motivation to intrinsic motivation. You could potentially do that, although it's really great. It's really good if you can get them to integrated regulation. So this is what I came up with, sort of. So if you're using mastery goals, which is right here at the top, uh, yeah, that incentivizes that. You're more likely to also foster a growth mindset. Your students feel better about their competence, how much control they have on the activities that they do, how they value their beliefs about um, the value of what they're doing are different than when you use performance goals. Um, so yeah, hope that makes sense. Um, so here are the results. The more concretely speaking, the results that I found on the literature, teaching mindset um, has an effect on academics. I I messed that up, but yeah, teaching mindset can affect academics. So here's a few of the main findings. If you teach mindset to your students, that might reverse the grade decline that occurs in the early years of adolescence. This is a trend also that happens when students get to high school. There has been studies that show that there's generally a decline too in grades, which might be linked to motivation, engagement, and all of those things. Um, Teaching mindset to students can also improve grades, especially among low achieving students, and reduces withdrawals from classes. It also reduces fixed trait, person focused attributions, as well as performance goals, and improves challenge seeking and increases course completion. And then lastly, it increases student engagement, as I've been suggesting. Um, and then when uh, you teach mindset to the students, that can also have an effect on the behavioral motivation. So the motivational behavior would might be a better way to phrase it. So motivational behaviors of your students. The students might stay focused or on task for longer and ask for extra help. Those are some of the concrete behaviors that I've found on the literature that I'll be using to in my action plan. A student persists when they face a difficult task or challenge. Students choose to be challenged intentionally too, and students ask questions that reflect inquiry and investigation. So those are the things, the behaviors that students show when their motivation is um up. I'm almost getting there. The data collection plan. This is my data collection plan. I've been learning in class, reading the text, and I read the literature that I'm presenting to you now. And I have four main ones. I'm going to discuss three to be brief, and four main uh, tools that I'll be using to collect data. So the first one is a Likert scale survey type of survey. This will hopefully measure the student mindset beliefs, so their beliefs about intelligence, how they perceive intelligence, so on and so forth. I plan to use it before and after the intervention to identify if there's any change in those beliefs. So, for instance, if they before the intervention, if they said things like, "I don't think I'm a math person," that's a fixed mindset type of belief. And then if that changes towards the end on their second response, that might indicate that the intervention was successful. And for reliability and validity, I plan to use the survey on two different groups of students that are taking the same class, which is really easy again for me to do because I do have that um, in my classes. The second tool or method that I'll be using is I'll use it's just going to be teacher observations. I'll use a rubric to, and hopefully this will measure the student motivational behavior. So all the things that I talked about previously, the asking meaningful questions, staying on task, persisting when there's a challenge, choosing challenge intentionally, so things like that. I'll make hopefully make a rubric and track that, how many times students um, show those behaviors in class, so how frequently they can show those. So to ensure reliability and validity, I'm gonna I'll probably have to have two or more other people, instructors, maybe a TA, to help me collect data. Maybe I don't even get to do it because I can see how this can be difficult if I'm like trying to teach and at the same time um, tracking data. I'm gonna probably spend half of the time just tracking data and not teaching. So I'll probably have somebody else do it, and then I'll try it myself somehow, somewhat, sometime, and compare the data that I get and the data that the other teachers get. And then lastly, I'll give a written reflection prompt to the students um, for and this will hopefully measure their beliefs about failure. Because and this is really important because remember, um, if they have a fixed mindset, they see failure as a weakness, as a sign of weakness. But if they have a growth mindset, they see failure as an opportunity to learn. They make mistakes. They know that they understand that they make mistakes, and when they do, they can fix them, and then when that's where learning comes. So and then I'll use this data, the reflections that they share with me, to code their responses, and I'll try to find recurring themes. So I'm gonna be looking for language that shows somehow that they have a fixed mindset. For instance, things like "I'm bad at this," that would be a fixed mindset attribute. Similarly, a growth mindset attribute might be something like, "I learned that I need to do so and so to get better." So that might be a fixed a growth mindset. So I'll look for those and try to code them and identify um, recurring themes among the students. So to ensure reliability and validity, I'll ask other teachers to review the responses and to evaluate if the coding that I've done is properly, if they agree with my interpretation of the students' responses. And this is it. Thank you so much for staying until this part of the video.